All right. Ready to dive into something kind of fun today?
Sounds good to me.
We're going deep into the world of love and attraction, specifically how our personality types might be playing a bigger role than we think.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff. We're looking at excerpts from Helen Fisher's book, Why Him, Why Her? And she really digs into the science behind it all.
So, we're not just talking about those personality quizzes you see online. This goes way deeper.
Way deeper.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where do we even begin with this?
Well, Fisher breaks down personality into four basic types: explorers, builders, directors, and negotiators. And each one is linked to specific brain chemistry.
Brain chemistry. Now we're talking. So, it's not just like, oh, I'm a little more outgoing than you. There's actual biology involved here.
Exactly. It's rooted in our biology. So take explorers, for instance. They're driven by dopamine, which means they're all about novelty, taking risks, that kind of thing.
Oh, the thrill seekers.
Yeah.
Always got to be trying something new. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Then you have builders who are more influenced by serotonin. They crave stability, social connections, and tend to stick to what's familiar.
So, like the planner in the friend group, the one who always has the itinerary set.
Yep, that's a good way to think about it.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see myself in some of these already. What about those other two types, directors and negotiators?
Well, directors are all about testosterone. Think strong, decisive, analytical, logic-driven folks.
Gotcha. The ones who always have a plan and stick to it.
Exactly. And then you have the negotiators, linked to estrogen,
Yeah.
and they're the ones who are really good at seeing the big picture, reading emotions, and they're usually pretty great communicators.
Okay, so we've got our four types, each with their own distinct, like, chemical blueprint. But I gotta ask, aren't we all a mix of these to some
Oh,
extent?
for sure. We're each a unique blend, but usually one or two of these really dominate our personalities.
So it's more about which one is the most, I guess, dominant in driving our actions and, well, our love lives, which is what we're really interested in here.
Right. And Fisher argues that these dominant types actually play a huge role in who we're drawn to romantically.
And this is where her research gets super interesting. She actually analyzed data from chemistry.com, right?
Right.
Like real life dating patterns, to see if there were any connections between personality type and who people ended up with. What did she find?
Well, some pretty clear trends emerged. Explorers, for instance, tend to be attracted to, you guessed it, other explorers.
So the adventure seekers find each other. Makes sense.
Exactly. They're both wired for that novelty and excitement. And the same goes for builders. They often gravitate towards other builders.
So a love of stability and routine brings those folks together.
Yep. So sometimes it really is birds of a feather flock together, at least when it comes to those two types.
But hold on, wouldn't that get a little, I don't know, predictable after a while?
Maybe. But things get a lot more interesting when you look at directors and negotiators.
Oh, what happens with them?
For them, it's often a case of opposites attract. Fisher found that these two types are actually drawn to each other, and she thinks it's because their personalities complement each other so well.
Now, that's intriguing. So tell me more about this director-negotiator dynamic. What's the magic formula there?
Well, you've got the director, who's all about logic and taking charge, often great at problem solving
Yeah.
and bringing structure to the relationship.
Right, so they kind of like keep things running smoothly, I guess.
Yeah, and then you have the negotiator who's bringing that empathy and intuition to the table. They're really good at fostering those emotional connections and seeing the bigger picture.
Oh, I see. So it's like they each have different strengths that actually balance each other out. Right.
Exactly, like pieces of a puzzle fitting together. And if we think about it from an evolutionary perspective, there's some really interesting logic behind these pairings, too.
Okay, now I'm really hooked. So tell me, does Fisher have any real-life examples of how this all plays out?
Oh, absolutely. She talks about a couple, Patrick and Suzanne, who met on chemistry.com and ended up getting married.
Ooh, a love story. Okay, tell me more.
So Patrick is actually a blend of negotiator and explorer, and Suzanne is more of a director-builder type.
Interesting. So they've got that opposites attract thing going on.
Definitely. And their wedding was a perfect example of how their different personalities actually complemented each other so well.
Okay, so paint a picture for me. What were they like?
Well, Patrick, being the negotiator explorer, was described as super charming, vivacious, and had a huge heart.
Oh, sounds lovely.
Yeah, he even spent his free time teaching English to immigrants and sending supplies to refugees.
So kind. What about Suzanne?
Suzanne was definitely more of the focused, decisive one, which is typical of her director-builder personality. She was probably drawn to Patrick's warmth and empathy.
I love that. It sounds like a great match. But even with that initial spark, I imagine different personality types are bound to, clash at some
Oh,
point.
for sure. For
Uh,
sure.
what kind of challenges might a couple like Patrick and Suzanne face down the road?
Well, thinking about their types, it's possible Suzanne, with her director tendencies, might sometimes feel a bit overwhelmed by Patrick's spontaneity.
I'd see that. The planner versus the free spirit.
Right. And Patrick, being the negotiator, might find it hard to deal with Suzanne's more pragmatic, less emotionally expressive style.
Oh, so even those traits that initially drew them together could become sources of tension later on.
It's true, but that's kind of the paradox of relationships, isn't it?
It is.
But Fisher really emphasizes that these challenges don't have to be deal breakers. In fact, by understanding their personality types, couples can actually anticipate those potential conflict areas and navigate them better.
So it's all about awareness and communication, like most things in relationships, I guess.
Absolutely. Instead of being blindsided by those differences, you can actually use this knowledge to strengthen your bond. It's
Ah,
like having a secret weapon for understanding your partner's needs and motivations.
that's a great point. And to make all this even more tangible, Fisher uses some really amazing anecdotes and research examples to bring it all to life.
Oh, yeah, like those giggle twins from the Minnesota twin study. These identical twins were raised apart, but ended up being strikingly similar in their personalities and life choices, right down to marrying their husbands at the same age and having similar careers.
Whoa, that's mind-blowing. It really makes you wonder how much of who we are is nature versus nurture, doesn't it? What other stories did she have?
She also talks about this hilarious experience she had eating a tarantula at the Explorers Club Gala. It perfectly captures that adventurous spirit of the explorer type,
Okay, I don't know if I could handle a tarantula, but it definitely paints a vivid picture.
for sure. And then there's Boris Yeltsin's famous tank leaping moment during the 1991 Soviet coup attempt, which Fisher uses as a real-world example of explorer impulsivity playing out on a grand scale.
Oh, wow, I remember that image so clearly. It's crazy to think how something as seemingly simple as personality type could be at play in such a huge historical event.
Right. It just shows how these innate tendencies can show up in the most unexpected ways. And then, to round out these examples, she talks about Helen Keller's life as this amazing testament to how explorers can overcome huge obstacles to really embrace life and adventure.
It's so inspiring. Fisher really knows how to illustrate these personality types with stories, doesn't she? But I'm wondering, does she go beyond these broad descriptions and give us any specific ways to identify these types in everyday life?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, she dives into some fascinating detail about how you can spot these types in subtle ways, sometimes even through physical features.
Wait, really? You can tell someone's personality just by looking at them. What kind of clues should we be looking for?
Well, for instance, she talks about how even something as small as the crypts and furrows in your irises can offer hints about your personality.
No way. Tell me more.
People with more furrows tend to be more impulsive, aligning with the explorer type, while those with more crypts tend to be more trusting and warm-hearted, which are traits often associated with negotiators.
That's wild. I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to people's eyes now. But it can't all be about physical features, can it? What are some other ways to decode someone's personality type?
Well, Fisher also found that even the words people use can reveal a lot about their dominant temperament.
Really?
Yeah, she analyzed the language used by different personality types on chemistry.com and noticed some really interesting patterns. Explorers often use words like adventure, spontaneity, new, that kind of thing,
Yeah, that makes sense.
while builders are more drawn to terms like family, loyalty, and tradition.
Ah, so our language reflects our inner world. It's almost like we're subconsciously signaling our personality type to potential partners without even realizing it.
It's like we're sending out these little coded messages, hoping someone with the right decoder ring will pick them up. And speaking of subconscious expressions, she even looked at doodles.
Doodles.
Yeah. She found that builders often gravitate towards structured, symmetrical designs, while explorers are more drawn to those abstract, free-flowing patterns.
Wow, I never would have thought of that. So it seems like these personality types are woven into every part of who we are, even our doodles. What about you? Do you see yourself in any of these types so far? Maybe you're a meticulous builder who thrives on routine, or perhaps you're realizing you have a hidden adventurous streak like an explorer.
Well, I'm definitely drawn to that analytical problem-solving side of the director type. I love dissecting information and figuring out how things work. But I also find myself really fascinated by the negotiator's ability to connect with people on a deeper level and see that bigger picture.
I totally get that. Those are both such valuable skills in any relationship, romantic or otherwise. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's circle back to that evolutionary logic behind why certain types are attracted to each other. What does Fisher say about that?
She basically suggests that these patterns of attraction developed over time because they were beneficial for survival and raising offspring in our evolutionary past.
Okay, so it makes sense from a survival of the fittest perspective. But how did that play out specifically for each pairing? Let's start with directors and negotiators. How did their complementary traits help them thrive in a more primal world?
Well, think about it. Directors, with their decisiveness and problem-solving skills, were probably really good at providing resources and protection for their families.
Right. Makes sense.
While negotiators, with their empathy and social intelligence, would have excelled at building strong communities and nurturing those close relationships, which were also essential for survival.
So it was like this perfect division of labor that maximized their chances of success. Each brought something vital to the partnership. What about builders who are attracted to other builders? How did their shared traits contribute to their survival? So we're seeing how, in a world full of danger, having a partner you could depend on, someone who shared your values, your commitment to family, that would have been huge for those builder types. But what about explorers? They're always seeking out new experiences, pushing those boundaries. How did those traits, which might seem risky, actually help them survive?
That's a really good question. And it's where things get even more fascinating. Fisher suggests that explorers, while they might not have been the most conventional parents, their willingness to explore new territories, try new things, that likely help them discover new resources and, adapt to changing environments.
So their adventurous nature, their curiosity, that could have been a real asset in a world that was constantly changing. It wasn't just about settling down, it was about being adaptable.
Exactly. And, Fisher actually observed that explorers were more likely to divorce and remarry, which, from an evolutionary perspective, might have actually been beneficial.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. More relationships could mean more genetic diversity in their offspring, right?
Mhm.
And that increases the chances of survival for future generations.
It's amazing how even traits that might seem like, I don't know, drawbacks in a modern context could have actually been advantageous back then. It really makes you appreciate the unique contributions of each personality type. But let's move beyond the broad strokes and really dive into the specific characteristics of each type. I'm eager to uncover those nuances that make each one so unique. Let's start with builders, those serotonin-driven folks who value stability and tradition. What makes them tick?
Builders are often described as the bedrock of society.
Yeah.
They're known for their loyalty, their conscientiousness, their respect for rules, for authority. They're the ones who keep things running smoothly in their families, in their communities, in their workplaces.
So reliable, dedicated, the glue that holds everything together. But I'm curious, are there any downsides to these traits? Could their strengths sometimes backfire?
Yeah, that's a good point. While their dedication to structure is admirable, their strong sense of duty, adhering to rules, it can sometimes make them seem a little inflexible or resistant to change. They might have trouble with spontaneity or going with the flow when that's what's needed.
I can see how that could create some tension, especially with a partner who's all about spontaneity and new experiences. It seems like finding that balance is key.
Absolutely. Every strength has its shadow side, right?
Yeah.
But it's also worth emphasizing that those builder qualities, steadiness, reliability, loyalty, those are incredibly valuable, especially in long-term relationships.
Very true. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about those explorers. They seem like the polar opposites of builders in many ways, always seeking out new experiences, pushing those boundaries. What can you tell us about their strengths and potential challenges?
Explorers are the adventurers, the novelty seekers, always up for trying something new. They're driven by curiosity, by creativity, a real thirst for excitement.
Oh, I can relate to that. I love exploring new ideas, trying new foods, traveling to new places. It keeps life interesting, expands your horizons.
Exactly. That's the explorer spirit. But, and there's always a but, right?
Hmm.
That constant need for stimulation can also present challenges. They might get bored easily in routine situations or have trouble sticking with long-term projects that require patience and persistence.
I see. So their impulsivity, that need for novelty, it's a double-edged sword. It sounds like finding a partner who appreciates their adventurous spirit, but also provides some grounding, that's key.
You got it. A good match for an explorer is someone who can keep up with their energy but also offer that sense of stability and security. It's all about balance.
Makes sense. Okay, let's move on to directors. Those testosterone-driven individuals known for their decisiveness, their analytical minds, what are some of their key characteristics?
Directors are often natural leaders. They're problem solvers. They excel in fields that require logic, strategy, a competitive edge. They're not afraid to take charge and make those tough decisions.
Yeah, I can definitely admire their confidence and that get it done attitude. But I'm wondering, could their directness, their focus on logic, could that sometimes be perceived as, I don't know, a little harsh or insensitive?
Yeah, that's a good observation. Their assertiveness can be a double-edged sword, for sure. While it's a strength in many situations, they might need to work on softening their approach sometimes, considering the emotional impact of their words.
So finding a partner who can challenge them intellectually, but also encourages them to like connect with their emotions, that would be ideal, right?
Yeah, someone who appreciates their strength, but also helps them tap into their empathy, their emotional intelligence. It's about that balance between head and heart.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about those negotiators. They're the estrogen-driven folks known for their empathy, their intuition, and their amazing communication skills. What really sets them apart?
Negotiators are often the diplomats, the peacemakers, the ones who are great at building bridges, understanding different perspectives. They're deeply compassionate, imaginative, and incredibly skilled communicators.
It sounds like they bring a lot of heart and soul to their relationships. But are there any potential downsides to these qualities? Anything they need to be mindful of?
Well, their empathy and intuition are amazing strengths, no doubt.
Hmm.
But sometimes that tendency to overthink or get lost in their emotions can lead to, you know, indecision or self-doubt. They might benefit from a partner who can help them stay grounded and make those tough choices when they need to.
So a partner who can provide structure and stability without like stifling their emotional depth and intuition.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where both partners feel supported and understood.
It's amazing how understanding these different personality types can help us not only choose compatible partners, but also navigate those inevitable relationship bumps, you know?
It's true. It's like having a secret decoder ring for understanding human behavior. And speaking of decoding, Fisher goes even deeper, exploring how these personality types can be revealed in subtle ways through our facial features, our word choices, even our doodles.
It's back to the eye thing, right? Tell me more about that.
So she found that the crypts and furrows in our irises, those little lines and patterns, they can actually provide clues about our personality. People with more furrows, they tend to be more impulsive, which aligns with that explorer type. And those with more crypts tend to be more trusting, warm-hearted, often associated with negotiators.
Wow, I never knew our eyes could be so revealing. I'll definitely be paying closer attention now. What about word choices? How do they give away our personality type?
Fisher analyzed language patterns on chemistry.com, and she found some really interesting trends. Like explorers, they often use words like adventure, spontaneity, new,
Right, makes total sense.
and builders gravitate more towards terms like family, loyalty, and tradition.
Ah, so our language really does reflect those core values and desires, even in subtle ways.
It's like our subconscious is doing the talking. And get this, she even looked at doodles.
Doodles, seriously.
Yeah. Builders often prefer structured, symmetrical designs, while explorers are drawn to more abstract, free-flowing patterns.
This is blowing my mind. It's like these personality types are just embedded in everything we do, even something as simple as doodling.
It really highlights how deeply ingrained these temperament traits are.
Mm.
And just when you think it can't get any more fascinating, Fisher takes it even further, pointing out that we can even see aspects of these personality types in the animal kingdom.
Wait, are you serious? Animals have personality types too.
It seems so. She talks about this chimpanzee colony at the Arnhem Zoo, where researchers observed chimps exhibiting behaviors that aligned with those four types. Like, some chimps were very social, adept at resolving conflicts, much like human negotiators, while others were more solitary, adventurous, those explorer types. And she even mentions this very conscientious German shepherd named Safie, who consistently displayed loyalty and a strong sense of duty, like a human builder.
That's incredible. So this whole personality type thing, it's not just a human thing. It's like woven into the fabric of life itself.
It makes you wonder if these personality types are so deeply rooted in our biology, even reflected in the animal kingdom. What does that mean for how we understand love and relationships?
It's a big question. It feels like we're just scratching the surface of understanding how these innate tendencies shape our romantic choices, the dynamics in our relationships.
Absolutely. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of the practical implications of all this knowledge, how we can use it to build stronger, more fulfilling relationships. Stick around.
So we've explored these four personality types, the brain chemistry, even seen glimpses of them in the animal world. But I think what our listener really wants to know is, how is this all helpful?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to know you're a dopamine-fueled explorer, but what does that actually mean for, like, having better relationships?
Right. So, what are some ways someone listening could use this in their own love life?
Well, I think the first step is really taking that personality test yourself. It can be really eye-opening. Even if you think you know yourself well, you might be surprised.
Yeah, you might discover a side of yourself you didn't realize was so strong.
Exactly. Like maybe you find out you've got a bigger builder streak than you thought, which explains why you're so into routine and planning.
And then those relationship patterns, past relationships, might suddenly start making more sense.
Totally. Like, let's say you've always been drawn to explorers, but deep down, you're a builder. No wonder things might feel a bit off.
So, self awareness is key. Know your own type. Then what?
Then, think about your partner's type. Are they a director who needs space to process their emotions? Or a negotiator who's all about open communication?
So, you can tailor your approach based on their needs.
Exactly. Once you understand their, like, operating system, disagreements and conflicts become a lot easier to handle.
It's like, instead of getting upset when your director partner goes quiet after an argument, you realize, oh, they just need some time to think things through.
Right. It takes the sting out of those moments that might otherwise cause hurt feelings or arguments.
Yeah.
It's about remembering that different people have different needs.
Fisher also talks about how this can help us appreciate the strengths each person brings to the relationship, too, right?
For sure. Like that explorer spontaneity that might drive a builder crazy can also bring fun and new experiences into the relationship.
Yeah, it's about seeing those differences as assets, not problems.
Exactly. Recognizing that those contrasting qualities can actually complement each other, make the partnership stronger.
And I guess it's important to remember that no one pairing is inherently better or worse, right?
Right. Each combination has its own unique strengths and challenges.
So, big takeaway, knowing your personality type and your partners can lead to more self-awareness, more empathy, and ultimately a stronger relationship.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And it actually brings up a really interesting question, something Fisher touches on but doesn't fully explore. If these personality types were shaped by evolution, to help us survive and raise kids,
Right.
what does that mean for love today in a world where those pressures aren't so immediate?
It's a great question. It makes you wonder if the rules of attraction are evolving too, along with how we live and the challenges we face.
Maybe now we have more freedom to explore connections that go beyond those basic biological drives.
It's an exciting thought. Maybe the future of love is even more diverse and complex than we can imagine.
Definitely. It's a journey of discovery, always something new to learn.
So, as you go about your day, keep those personality types in mind. You might be surprised by what you notice about yourself, your loved ones, even that stranger across the coffee shop.
Happy exploring. Remember, every interaction is a chance to learn something new about ourselves in this fascinating world of human connection.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time.